Well, can you hear me? I can hear myself, but all right. So, welcome. I didn't expect it to be that full here. I don't know what happened. If a busload of people just arrived. So, I'm Benjamin Bischoff. I'm what's called a web test automation engineer. I'm not quite sure about that title because it's super long. So I'm just an automation guy. And I joined trivago 15 months ago. And before that, I worked in the games industry, but I decided to move more into automation and make this my career. And yeah, I want to tell you some stuff about what we did towards continuous delivery. Spoiler alert, we're not there yet. We're not doing complete continuous delivery, but we're on our way, and that's what I want to share. So let's see. Those are the topics I want to cover. A little bit about trivago as a company, about the main product my team is actually testing, then how our releases used to be, how they should be, and where we are at the moment. Then introduce the central automation team that was basically started a few weeks before I joined, very fresh. Some of the challenges we had along the way, and then give you a little summary and some key points that I think were important for us. Maybe they will be important for you. So about trivago. Well, let's see. Who of you knows trivago? Hands up. Oh, that's, I would say, half of the room. Who of you used it before? Okay, one. Oh, there are two more. Great. Well, we can change that, I guess. All right, so a few facts about trivago. It was founded in 2005, so it's still pretty young with 12 years in existence. It was actually the first hotel meta search in Germany. It was founded in Düsseldorf, Germany, and it's still headquartered there. At the moment, we're building a new headquarter, which is also in Düsseldorf, so we're staying where we were founded, basically. We have a mission statement that all of our actions should always reflect. It's to be the traveler's first and independent source of information for finding the ideal hotel at the lowest rate. And for that, we established a set of core values. They existed before I joined, but that's something that the company wants the people to at least think about and act accordingly. So it's all based on trust. Right at the bottom, there's trust. Everybody should trust each other as far as possible. I mean, it's not always possible to trust everybody, but it's at least something we should strive for. Then we have authenticity. So everybody is encouraged to be himself, as corny as it sounds, but I think that's a really nice thing. Entrepreneurial passion is about having ideas and striving to get those ideas known and make them public and work on them. But to do that, you should have the core value in the middle, which is the power of proof. So everything you do should be provable in advance. So if you think something could be beneficial to reach the mission statement, then you should have at least some idea of numbers. Like, it will probably help us to get more people to our website, or the test coverage will be higher, or something. Some proof that you can use. And then there is unwavering focus, which is important to keep on track to reach your goals. And on top is the fanatic learning. It was said here before in some talks that we are an industry that encourages you to fail as long as you learn from it. And that's exactly what trivago wants too. So they, of course, don't want us to fail, but if we fail, we should learn. That's it. So the main product that many of you might have seen but not used before is this. This is called Hotel Search. And this is basically a website which is searching through different booking sites for hotels that you might need. You can use a lot of filters. You can put in your travel dates and whatever. The important part is this. Those are the offers that are displayed on the site. And when you click on one of those offers, this is where we make our money. So many people think when they hear trivago, oh, it's that booking site. No, it's not. We don't offer bookings. We just offer a forward, a redirect to an OTA, which is an online travel agent. And this is called cost per click. So this click out actually generates our revenue. So this is something that has to work all the time. So it has to be tested. Currently, we're active on 55 markets across the globe in many different locales and even right-to-left versions of the website. So that is also a challenge to test. But yeah, I mentioned all the things about the company. But around this whole conference, there are much more things mentioned. We mentioned manual and automated testing. We mentioned deployment, test pipelines, frameworks, technologies, documentation, knowledge sharing, team building. We talk about agile methodologies, everything. But why? Why are we actually doing that? And that's something I thought about a lot. And at first I thought, oh, yeah, because technology is cool. That's why we think about that. But no, it's about user value. And I always wanted to have a slide with horses and a rainbow in a talk. So, achievement unlocked. Great. So that's what we're doing this for. That's why we're testing, we're creating its user value. It's something that the users of our services expect from us to have. So every release we have should add value. Everything we do as automation engineers should add value to the product, also to the people who use our stuff, our test framework. They need value as well. Let's go to the hotel search releases and how they used to be before this automation team existed. We had a feature development during or after there were manual tests. Then when QA said this feature is done, the dev said this feature is done, it was merged to master. Sometimes there were more features merged at the same time. Then there was some automation running, and then there was a release. Or the automation wrote in Jira comments, something was wrong, and then manual tests kicked in again, and after that, there could be rollbacks, and that would happen frequently. Like a feature combination broke the whole website. So the problems with that were that you had repetitive manual work for every feature. If something broke, you had to test the whole thing. Old features could break. You could have possible long release cycles because of the frequent rollbacks, and the automated tests didn't have real effects. They were there to inform, but not all of the time people cared. So the goal, if you check the past flow again, the goal is actually very simple. It's swapping the two last steps. So the feature development and the manual tests stay, but then there should be automated tests that are triggered automatically. They should prevent the merge of broken features. And then there should be a release. This leads to more stable new features, quicker release cycles because you don't have those rollbacks anymore, much easier refactoring because, like, you know, with unit tests, if you have unit tests, you are more encouraged to refactor. Critical paths are covered, like the click out. And most importantly, new features cannot break older ones. So what we're doing there is adding value to the product and not taking value away because something that the user expects to work doesn't anymore. So, like I mentioned, when I joined, there was a new team created, and this is called Release and Test Automation Team. RTA is the internal abbreviation for it. And it's actually two teams in one. It's the release engineering part of the team and the test automation part. And I'm a part of the test automation part of this team. It's a little complicated. So we are there to maintain the test framework and the test pipelines and all the automation behind that, support all the teams that use our platforms, decrease the release time of the application, remove the repetitive manual work, I should say, and improve the stability of the product. So, because we're at trivago, we have to have a mission statement as well, and it's make automated testing a widely used and reliable technique at trivago. And I have to add here, this is for the hotel search product, because we have many more products with other testing teams, but the main goal for us is to keep the hotel search running. So the old automation approach in the old pipeline had some problems as well. Not only the pipeline, but also the old automation. The old framework was not flexible enough. It was based on a framework, on an open source one that probably many of you might use, but it proved to be too inflexible for our case. I won't mention any names. We didn't have clear guidelines for the tests, either in terms of structure or in terms of code style. Everyone did their own stuff. We didn't have a full test suite, a combined test suite of everything. Like all the different QA teams might or might not have automation in some style, maybe not even using the test framework, but something else. We didn't have test result visibility, really. So we had those Jira comments from the automation, but that was basically it. And most importantly, we didn't have a test ownership, so nobody really knew what to do if something failed. So we had to take some decisions in the team. Who writes and owns the test? How are the tests structured? Where should the test be located? A simple question like that. How and when should the test be run? And there was a lot, and I say a lot of discussion about all of those points, and we decided to empower QA to write their own tests. So our goal as an automation team was to provide the framework and the technology behind it, but QA, they know best what to test and what they can automate and what they do manually over and over. So we didn't want to be in their way, but empower them to do it. So we set up clear test guidelines in terms of structure, where those tests should be located, how the components should be set up, but also coding styles that we enforced with technology. We used checkstyle for that. Where should the test be located? We decided after a long discussion inside the software under test. So in the same repository, in our case, the software that we're testing is written in PHP, but the tests and the framework, they're written in Java. But you can do that. That's no problem anymore with the IDEs you have. You can just put that inside. So everyone who checks out our main application automatically has all the tests. So it's not a separate repo. And we created a new test framework and the pipelines that go with it to solve all those problems we had before. Of course, we had some challenges on the way, and we had two kinds of challenges. We had technical challenges, and we had psychological challenges. I don't know if it's an official thing to say psychological challenges, but that's the group I chose. So the test framework, we're using Cucumber. That's a subtle slide. The goal was to make it very user-friendly, stable and consistent, very clearly documented, very important. The next point is even more important, easy to run tests. So everyone who writes the test should be able to test their tests, to run them singly on their machine to check if they make sense. Enable parallel execution. That was a kind of tricky part with Cucumber, but we solved that as well. And support our application-specific features. That doesn't mean that this framework is trivago specific, but it means that all those quirks on our application can be supported. Another thing was the test infrastructure, so the Selenium grid, because we needed that obviously for parallel runs of the tests. Yeah, so first we started with a static grid, which that's actually wrong. It's not hard to set up a static grid. It's actually pretty easy. It's hard to set up a dynamic grid. That's where the problem starts. You have a lot of maintenance for an in-house grid, at least for us, because we didn't have any experience with that before. And especially when like a new Chrome browser was released, everything was just crumbling. Very hard to scale if you don't know how. And you have limited OS and browser combinations. And I put less expensive with a question mark because it's actually a lot of time you need, a lot of maintenance time, a lot of manpower you need to keep the grid alive. So the external grid actually solved everything for us. So that's why we went with this. Isn't that great? PowerPoint animations. We also had some psychological challenges. And the next slide is not against QA. I respect them a lot. And we actually had some bias towards them as well. But that's some stuff we heard from QA side. Automated tests will replace all manual testing. They want to take away our jobs and replace us by automation. They want to turn QA into developers. And when somebody wrote a test, he said, my test is done, so I have nothing more to do. Or the classic, I have no time for automation because I have to do so many manual tests, which is it's very strange when you think about it. But to deal with this bias, we wrote extensive documentation, but as you might know, you cannot expect to read everyone to read through your massive amounts of documentation. So we had workshops with the QA teams. We established something that's called automation time, which is, it used to be twice a week for 2 hours. Now it's weekly. And this is just like an informal workshop where the QA people and people from the automation team meet and talk about problems and try to solve some tests, review pull requests, just in a very friendly way. This next one makes sure everyone is on the same page. That's something we actually did almost too late. When we were in the process for a few months already, we noticed that everybody was unhappy. We were unhappy as an automation team because nobody wanted to do automation. And the QA team was unhappy because they felt that we forced them into doing something they didn't want to do. So testing is a team effort. That's something you should always remember. It has been mentioned here multiple times that the magic word is communication. Always. Even for developers like me, it was really hard to communicate because that's why I wanted to be a developer. I didn't want to communicate, but now I have to, and now I'm speaking here. That's a change. Increased trust in tests. That was also something that we had to work on really hard Because if something fails, if something is flaky, it cannot be trusted. So we set up a lot of dashboards and a lot of reporting. Everybody now knows where to find those reports. We have extensive logging, more for the automation team, so we know when something fails that we can dig deeper into the cause of things. Early flakiness detection is super important. So we have test jobs that run during the night and repeat the test suite over and over and over again and gather data about all the tests. And then the next day we can see a report of which tests failed during the night and why. Test qualification job, that's a Jenkins job, a really simple one that the QA guys can use when they write a new test to run this test 100 times against the application so they can see if it's flaky or not. And that helps prevent some flakiness later. Slack notifications on test failures, also Slack notifications to the owners of the tests. All of our tests have owners. So they get Slack notifications saying, sorry, your test failed because there was like an element not found. And we established the concept of duty managers to keep the rest of the team focused. So if there are some flaky tests, failing tests, you don't have to ping the whole team and say, this is flaky. You just have to ping one person. And this person changes daily. So you have one point of contact, and he will make sure, or she, that the appropriate person will be pinged. That's something needs to be done. Also on our side, because we're only a 3-people team and a team lead, so we don't have unlimited resources to just keep monitoring all the tests. So the status of it all is that we actually achieved a lot. We have all the test pipelines in place. We have a test suite of about 200 scenarios, more or less. The tests are run automatically on pull requests and on feature branches. We have Kibana dashboards, so all of our tests log not only to the normal console output, but also to Kafka streams. So we can gather this data back into Kibana dashboards. We have full test reports with screenshots and videos. And most importantly, we have a clear ownership for tests. And we have processes in place when something fails, who should be contacted, why, what should be done with those tests. What we didn't achieve yet is the blocking of the pull requests, which is going to happen hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, because we're pretty confident we can do it. We want to have even clearer reporting. So we want to boil down like the essence of why something failed, and not because we don't want to spam people with, if 10 of their tests fail, they shouldn't have 10 messages on every test run. Further education, both for us as a team and for the QA teams, because we want to work even closer together. On the test framework architecture and speed, we're on a pretty good way already, but there's still room for improvement. And the last one should actually have been one of the first ones, working together with the feature developers, because they know their code. They know what tests would be needed as well, not only QA. So we actually have to be like a triangle: the feature developers, the QA, and the automation team. So in summary, if you remember those core values of the company, I took 4 of those core values that I think may be important for test automation and for testing. Trust, unwavering focus, power of proof, phonetic learning. Trust in terms of trustful automation. You have to be able to trust your tests, trust your reporting. You have to know what to do in case of failures. clear ownership of tests, also the duty manager concept, helped us to keep our focus. The power of proof, of course, is the test result visibility. And phonetic learning is communication. Why? Can you guess it? Why are we doing that? I want to show it again. I'm sorry. I love this slide, I'm sorry. It's user value. So, yeah, my name is Benjamin. You can reach me under Twitter if you have any questions. @BischoffDev is my handle, and thank you very much.